Oh, I saw this. John Kirby and his takes on a ceasefire. Let's take a look at what he has to say.
That if coming out of this meeting, there's some sort of call for a ceasefire, well, that's just going to be unacceptable, because all that's going to do, Mike, is ratify Russia's conquest to date. All that's going to do is give Mr. Putin more time to refit, retrain, reman, and try to...
Is wild, because I've heard this verbatim from like random liberals in my chat. What an incredible state of affairs when like I got libs in the chat saying John Kirby's lines verbatim, but for free. Like at least he's getting paid to say it. Like you're just doing it for free, man. That's crazy.
To plan for renewed offensives at a time of his choosing. We hope, and we've said this before, that President Xi will call and talk to President Zelensky, because we believe the Chinese need to get the Ukrainian perspective here. That if...
Why does this not work on the other side? You're eating your fucking macaroni and you're telling me a ceasefire would be good for Ukrainians? A ceasefire would be good for everybody across the board. Of course, it would be bad for Americans, but ultimately, most likely won't happen, I don't think, because of sentiments like this expressed by the likes of John Kirby and everybody else. Yeah, he called you a noodle boy. First of all, I'm not eating a macaroni. I'm eating a salad. Get it right. Secondly, if peacefire or ceasefire, if ceasefire is good for Russia so they can re-up their armaments or whatever, why can't you say the same about Ukraine? Like, that argument is so fucking stupid. That's the part I don't understand. Where they're like, okay, well, you're pumping like literally limitless amounts of guns. You know, you can train the F-16 pilots in Ukraine in the meantime. You know what I mean? And galvanize Ukraine's defenses. Fuck you mean? Like, no, only Russia will benefit from it. Okay, I guess so. Well, they're getting their fucking dicks pushed, okay? Anyway, Americans are not as bad as Russians. What? What, like random citizens? The fuck do you mean? What? This is such a stupid conversation to have. Like, I don't give a fuck. I don't know what context you are saying this in, but like ultimately it doesn't even fucking matter. If you were talking about like Americans justifying Iraq in the 20th anniversary of Iraq, you know, I got another thing to tell you. You like shitting on people? No, I don't actually. I hate shitting on people. Unless they're like Republican mouthpieces, you know? L take from Hassan, like Crimea prompted Ukrainian prep to prevent this war. Guys, if you think that like this is going to come to an end anytime soon, I don't know what to tell you. You know, we'll just keep watching from over here. Do you hate being wrong? Not really. I think I'm a human being. I can be wrong. I have demonstrated that I have the capability of being wrong. So anyway, look, for everybody who's saying that, you know, it's good that the war continues. It's good that the war continues. Like, okay, good luck. You know, it's like, it's not like what we say is going to change anything. You know what I mean?
And a ceasefire now, without a durable solution, would allow President Putin to rest and refit his troops and then restart the war at a time more advantageous to Russia. The world should not be fooled by any tactical move by Russia, supported by China or any other country, to freeze the war
this looks like a deep
on its own terms. Such a move would violate the UN Charter and defy the will of 141 countries.
It's also fair to ask, how could this end any other way than a ceasefire? Libs just want to keep Russia bleeding at all costs. As far as polling in the EU goes, public sentiments have shifted to wanting some kind of end to the war. Yeah, of course it has. It's not that you're wrong. It's that you have no empathy for Ukrainians in this one issue for some weird reason. I do have empathy for Ukrainians. That's why I think a ceasefire is more important than like continuing fucking Russia's unjustifiable invasion. I think it's the empathetic position to take. It is not a sentiment shared by Ukrainians, but I think a ceasefire should come with conditions and also a process in which they talk about whatever territory Ukraine gets back in the situation. It is liberal brain rot to assume that continuing war is the more empathetic thing. You know what I mean? Ukrainians don't agree with me, but I'm right anyways. I mean, yeah, there are plenty of people that could fucking say that, you know, Ukrainians ultimately have this do not share the sentiment, but you're also not really thinking about what I'm saying here. Okay? While I don't think Russia would ever give back Crimea, a ceasefire and any kind of negotiation starting literally opens the door to that conversation of like Russian territory that is now expanded into further and further in beyond LPR, but further into Donbass especially, and possibly giving that land back to the Ukrainians. You know what I mean? These are all conversations that you could have when you're no longer shelling one another. Okay? These are not necessarily conversations you can have while you're currently shelling one another and while people are dying. You are the one who associates a ceasefire with like whatever the fuck Western media is telling you is going to continue making the... Yo, dog, I didn't know you were a CCP mouthpiece when I subbed. Oh, I'm sorry to tell you. I'm sorry to inform you, but you know, this is a Top G platform. Like, that's my sentiment on this. I said from the top, from the jump that, you know, the Minsk agreements would have put an end to a lot of this conversation. And I think that ultimately that is literally looking like the best possible outcome that could have happened in comparison to what has happened thus far. But you know, you can also make the argument that like, well, neither side wanted to fucking, you know, follow through on the Minsk agreement, which is true. But if the big daddies got involved, China on the one side and the United States on the other, in a totally different world, in a totally different universe where the military-industrial complex is not our most viable and most important industry, and the United States does not care about, you know, pursuing capital interests for the military-industrial complex, and they were genuinely in favor of, like, preventing senseless bloodshed, they would go for a ceasefire and then set the terms for Ukrainian emancipation, especially considering America's dick being bigger in the room. And, you know, there could be some reasonable solution that most likely resembles the something similar to the Minsk agreement. But regardless, no matter what happens, one thing that I need everyone to understand is that there is nothing we say is going to change anything. You can get mad at me all you want, okay? But I think that even if you believe that like Ukraine deserves to get back Crimea, okay, an understandable position, sentiment shared by Ukrainians, okay? The only solution towards that is by starting off a ceasefire negotiation and getting to the table and having that conversation rather than fucking shelling endlessly back and forth. Do you get it? You are the one who claims to know what's best for the Ukrainians and their future. They have agency. Would you say the Palestinians, they have to do a ceasefire in order to set terms of peace with Israel? This is such a gross example to set because the Palestinians are not getting an endless amount of fucking supply to fight back against the state of Israel. As a matter of fact, the same people are funding and facilitating Israel's evisceration of Palestinian people. So I don't know how you can fucking get away with even saying something like this without Allah smiting you from where you stand. If there was truly a just God, anyone that even tried to exercise the same level of processing power to put that word forward, even to talk about some of the most unjustifiable apartheid violence that is currently happening, that is totally normalized in the Western world, that no one even fucking bats an eye at, and then comparing it to like Russia's invasion, unjustifiable and inhumane invasion of Ukraine, where the very same military machine is also funding and funneling weapons into Ukraine, is insane. Like, it's just such a fucking stupid comparison. It blows my fucking mind. It's like, yeah, if my aunt had 4 wheels, I'd call her a fucking car type shit, okay? Like, crazy. It's insane. Yeah, if Palestinians and Israelis were engaging in the same kind of territorial dispute, like, what the fuck are you talking about? Are you oblivious to the reality? It is completely different. And also, on top of that, The funny part about this that Faustini would also agree with is that we don't give the Ukrainians everything that they want, regardless of how honest, how just, how normal, or not how normal their interest is in emancipation, right? It's a human interest to no longer have invaders inside of your borders. That is why I always say the Ukrainian cause is just. To rid the country of Russian invasion is a completely just and moral thing, okay? It is a moral demand. But we don't give the Ukrainians a nuke. We don't give the Ukrainians Article 5 privileges. We don't give the Ukrainians even F-16s so far. We probably will eventually, but not yet. They want all of those things. They want fucking NATO intervention, but we don't do that for Ukrainians. But I don't see you fucking complaining about that shit, being like, well, we're not doing everything for Ukraine. Turns out we do have limitations on how much help we can offer Ukraine. So why don't you go yell at your fucking, I don't know, why don't you yell at your government to make sure that we do those things so we can have nuclear holocaust, so I don't have to fucking hear your dumbass takes ever again, like a ceasefire cannot happen because Television Man told me ceasefire bad, even though a ceasefire and then favorable terms for the Ukrainians would be the obviously best case scenario out of this circumstance. But no, you have to make like psychotic comparisons to fucking Palestinian emancipation as they are currently living under a horrific theocratic ethno-state, apartheid state that is eviscerating their existence, where 1 million plus Palestinians live in the largest open-air prison called Gaza that's being endlessly bombed and shelled non-fucking stop by our weapons. And then the rest of them are also under occupation. That is, again, completely illegal. But nobody gives a fuck about international law when it's America or its allies doing the unjustifiable thing. There can be no favorable discussion for Ukrainians during ceasefire. This is fantasy. Fantasy or not, the fact that, both superpowers involved in this are not advocating for this endlessly is really fucking stupid. And I, as a completely powerless political commentator, I'm not going to stop saying that is the right thing to do. Also, yeah, I do agree that the United States should treat Palestine like they treat Ukraine. That would be fire, but that'll never happen.
Who have condemned Russia's war in the United Nations General Assembly.
Hasanabi, you're so wrong, bro. I didn't even say anything that is disagreeable. Like, that is the wild part about it, is that, like, I am literally saying that I would want favorable terms for Ukraine and Ukrainian emancipation in a ceasefire. And the ceasefire itself is like unimaginable to you because you live in Iowa. You don't give a fuck one way or the other. You go on Reddit and masturbate to war porn that's happening where like 18-year-old Ukrainians are getting fucking domed. And then, they're doing trench warfare, but that's hot for you. You know what I mean? You're just sitting there and jerking off. You're like, yeah, I feel like a cyber warrior when I put the Ukrainian flag in my bio so they can fucking die in some gray-ass, snow-covered, pussy fucking town. Yeah, I can't wait for another fan cam of like, some dumbass 19-year-old Russian conscript that doesn't want to even fucking be there, that didn't even know what the fuck's going on, have a grenade dropped on him from a fucking UAV. You know what I mean? It's sick. I love that. No, it sucks. It fucking sucks. It absolutely is unimaginably cruel that ultimately the only one that is benefiting from this is straight up the American war machine, the American war industry. Why did you raise $250,000 for Putin, huh? Yeah, true. Remember when I did that for the LPR DPR recognition fund? Oh, wait, I didn't do that. I actually raised it for Ukrainian refugees. But hey, you'll never hear that from the fucking dumbass liberals that are just not interested in anything, but just interested in winning debates.